Now let's catch up with LNP Senator for Queensland, Matt Canavan. Thanks for joining us, Matt. I've got to ask you first up about Robodebt. Late this afternoon, a classic sort of Friday afternoon dump of bad information revealed that the government's going to have to repay more than $700 million to welfare recipients in this country.
Well, Chris, there has been some problems with this program for a little bit of time. Last year, the government suspended repayments under aspects of this scheme, and obviously, I'm not quite up to speed yet with all of the conclusions. But obviously, through that review process, while the suspension was in place, big problems have been discovered. So they've ended the program and will repay the money. So it's the right thing to do, I think, if errors or issues have been discovered, to be upfront and fix it.
Yeah, there have been court processes and there's been a lot of focus on this. A lot of people are suspicious about it being dumped out today. For instance, the Prime Minister was in front of the national media earlier this afternoon. It wasn't announced until after that was done.
Well, look, I'm sorry I don't have any knowledge of all the details, but I'm sure it'll get a fair amount of scrutiny from yourself and others in the Fourth Estate. That's the right thing to do, but what I think is most important is here, if errors have been made, that we rectify them and make good.
Yes, the important thing is that there's something like 300,000 people or more who are going to get a refund, so they'll be looking forward to that. It's going to come on July the 1st. It's a more than $700 million hit to the budget, which ordinarily would be a massive hit, but these days it seems like small fry.
Well, yeah, we're unfortunately in that world, aren't we, Chris? It's a scary situation, I think, for our country to be in. Where last week we had a $60 billion accounting error in estimates, and some are out there saying, well, let's go and spend the $60 billion. We've saved $60 billion now. When I'm sure you know and I know that there isn't $60 billion hanging around the back of Josh Frydenberg's office. Every dollar we are spending to help and assist through this coronavirus crisis is borrowed money that has to be repaid at some point, borrowed money that goes on the nation's credit card and will ultimately then increase our interest bill every year, reduce what we can spend on other things. Now, it's right and proper we provide assistance to people right now, but we have to be very mindful about how we go here, because we've been very lucky to have a good set of public finances. But we saw through the global financial crisis how quickly countries can go from being very good on their balance sheet to very bad overnight.
Now, the Prime Minister has announced that the National Cabinet is going to continue. He says it's a good way to get decisions made quickly, with the leaders speaking directly, and he had a bit of a noodle nation map of how it's all going to work in the future. There's still going to be bureaucrats working with ministers on long-term projects, but a National Cabinet meeting every month, is that going to work? Is that streamlining government, or could it just create more bureaucracy?
Well, I certainly support trying to change the COAG model. I was involved in the ministerial forums associated with COAG as the Minister for Resources in Northern Australia. And look, my process didn't go too poorly, but I know through the energy discussions there was a complete schmozzle. It was just used by often state governments as a platform to push various issues that they struggle to get airplay on day to day in their own local media, and it degenerated into a degree of shouting at each other through the media, and the meetings became just perfunctory to that theatre. So I fully support changes. I do want to say though that I am concerned and mindful that we must ensure that regional Australia is represented through these fora. The National Cabinet has no one who does not live in a capital city around the table, and as being in the Nationals Party and up here from Rockhampton, our voice from country and rural areas must be represented in these types of national decision-making bodies.
Now, the point here is that the National Cabinet worked very effectively and very quickly together to shut down the country to tackle the pandemic. But there's not much unity on the way out. In fact, we've got 3 states and 1 territory with their borders closed, and the Prime Minister talking about opening up the country and focusing back on jobs. I mean, if we can't agree to get the country moving again, it doesn't hold out a lot of promise for the national body.
Well, a cynic, Chris, would say that whenever governments get together and talk, they probably can cooperate and agree a lot more on putting in new laws and regulations than they can agree and cooperate on taking away laws and regulations and powers from themselves. And it's the latter that we'll certainly need over the next months and years to recover our economy. In saying that, it is important for governments to continue to communicate, and some good may come of it. But I also don't think we can expect consensus alone to replace leadership, and we're going to have to provide a degree of leadership, I think, from the Commonwealth level, and not wait for any. We certainly don't want to be. We don't want to go to the lowest common denominator, and that is sometimes the risk through these sort of forums.
Spot on.
You know, you end up as a few states or the Commonwealth wants to do one thing, but there's a couple of holdouts, and if you're working on a consensus model, then nothing happens.
Need to get cracking.
So we've got to be just careful and wary of that.
And thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time, Matt.
No worries, Chris. Have a good weekend, mate.
Senator Matt Canavan there.